So this right here is my new main PC for both gaming and productivity. Hope you like that. So if you're new here, I do a lot of tech videos, filmmaking, camera gears, and desk setups. So a powerful PC is a must for photo and 4K video editing. And I do play a few games on the side just to get away from creative stress. So in this video, I'll show you guys how I built this PC, and it's always been my goal to have an RTX PC with powerful components. This one has the newest AMD Ryzen 9950X 3D that is liquid cooled by the Kraken 240mm. And for my graphics, it's not the greatest, but it has the Asus RTX 5080 Astral. Some people have asked why not go for the RTX 5090, and in all honesty, I couldn't afford the RTX 5090 just because here in Canada especially, they go for about 4,000 plus Canadian, and if you go to Amazon, they can go up to 5,000 plus, which is ridiculous. So all the items that you'll see here came out of my own money. So this is not sponsored by any brands that I use in this video, but this video is sponsored by Motion Array, so I can continue making these videos for you guys and I can make a living out of it. So more on that later. Now, before buying all the internal parts for the PC build, it's always great to start with the PC case. I've always wanted to try the Ncase M2 Grater, and I believe they just released the M3, which is a bummer just because I just bought this case. The M3 is slightly bigger, and they also just added new accessories for their cases. So if you're okay with the slight increase in size, then I would recommend it. So this PC is inspired by Optimum, but I did something that no one has done yet, or at least I haven't seen one here on YouTube, is to put the Asus RTX 5080 Astral in a traditional orientation, which is almost impossible to do without cutting some parts of the graphics card, case, and properly mounting it. Of course, I'll be doing some benchmarks and temperatures for you guys to see later. So starting off with the CPU, when AMD announced their new Ryzen 9950X 3D, I knew right away that I'm going to get this CPU for my next build. They go for around 650 USD or 960 Canadian plus tax, so you'll be looking around $1,000 for a CPU. But it's currently AMD's flagship CPU for both gaming and productivity, such as photo and video editing or even 3D modeling. Now for the motherboard, I went with the Asus ROG Strix B850-i gaming Wi-Fi with a good amount of ports. It can carry two M.2 SSDs and essential features such as Wi-Fi, adequate VRMs, fans, and AIO headers. Not to mention, it's a cool looking motherboard for an RTX build. Installing the CPU is pretty easy. You just have to align the arrow you find on the top left of the CPU and match it with the motherboard, and simply lock it. Now for my RAM, I went with the DDR5 Corsair Vengeance 64GB at 6000 MHz CL30 for better speed and a very slight increase in gaming performance. I didn't go for the 96GB version because I really think that 64GB is good for 4K video editing and it's more than enough for gaming. I personally want to put some of that budget for the graphics card. The size is perfect for this build because it's a low profile, so I have plenty of space to fit the AIO later. Installing it is easy, but don't forget to align the middle space with the slot to properly install it to avoid damages. For my storage, since I'm making a compact and very dense RTX build, I went ahead and got myself two of the 4TB M.2 Samsung 990 Pro to maximize the storage. I didn't go with their latest 9100 Pro series because it didn't quite fit the budget, and with the 990 Pro, it's perfectly fine loading apps, games, and especially editing 4K videos. For the installation, it has one in the front with a heatsink and one on the back. Now for the case, I went with the Ncase M2 Grater because based on specs, you can fit the Asus RTX 5080 Astral in vertical orientation. I did a lot of research before pulling the trigger on this one because I do want it as small as possible but can fit a large graphics card and at least a 240mm liquid cooler. So if this is your first time with this case, I would highly suggest watching their build guide video at the very least to have an understanding of this case, because I went with the unassembled version and you'll have to do a lot of trial and error, especially if you want a specific build like mine. The case is definitely high quality and I can say you definitely get what you pay for because they've put a lot of thoughts into designing this case. To start off, you'll have to get the base mount of the case and install the motherboard while keeping in mind the wires on top and for the GPU space. So for this, Both the first and second layer of the holes is okay if you want to install a 120mm slim fans on top for extra airflow. Now, my main issue with this build is the traditional orientation of the graphics card. Like the Asus Astral is so massive and heavy, and it's so tricky to install it properly in this case without sagging or potentially even damaging some parts. So be very careful with it, and I would highly suggest, if you're doing the same build and orientation as mine, to install these supports before moving forward with the GPU, because without it, it's either the GPU is not connected properly to the PCI slot, or it will sag so much that it can possibly damage or bend your motherboard. Now, I went ahead and tested the fit of the graphics card first, and I end up cutting this part of the case to fully align the graphics card and cut out this part of the GPU so it's fully fit in the case. Now you'll need a small rotary tool to properly cut these pieces. So far this process, I was actually feeling very frustrated with this build because not only I'm risking a $2,000 card and a warranty, but also this build has been very finicky, and just figuring out this part took a lot of trial and errors. It's unfortunate that I got the M2, but with their new M3, I personally haven't tried it, but because it's a slightly bigger case, it might actually fit the Astral without doing any of this. Once done all the cutting and putting all the support points for this massive graphics card, for the power supply, I went with the Corsair SF1000, which is more than enough for this build. And I've searched that having an RTX 5080 together with the 9950X3D requires a minimum of 850 volts power supply, so I went with 1000 watt just to make sure there's a little bit of room later on. With the installation, Ncase actually provide a support bracket for the power supply, so you can decide the position while keeping in mind the cables, the radiator, and spaces for the fans. So I went ahead with this position. Once done, I finally installed the front panel, getting ready to install the GPU. Now, as I mentioned, I'll be going with the Asus RTX 5080 Astral, and after all the modifications, it perfectly fits the case without any sag, and it has full support from the bottom and the back. Once the GPU is secured, I installed the wire for the power button to the motherboard. Also, don't forget to install the power supply adapter on top of the back panel. After that, I went and tried putting the slim fans at the bottom of the panel for extra GPU cooling, and no, it didn't fit at all, just in case you were thinking about it. So just install the bottom panel and make sure to put these support brackets to avoid GPU sag. We're almost done, but before installing the AIO liquid cooler, I went ahead and installed the cable first and made sure to properly do cable management to avoid issues later on. Now, because the Asus Astral is so fitted for this case, I won't be able to close the side panels without this angled GPU power adapter. Specifically for Astral, plus it does look really clean with this. Some people have asked me, where do I get this custom GPU support and the power adapter? If you're curious, all the items and modifications I made for this build are all linked below, including the power adapter and the GPU support. These are my affiliate links that don't cost you extra but gives me a little bit of a kickback to support this channel. Second question, how did you balance the GPU support? To be honest, it took a lot of trial and error on my end, and I would just recommend following what I just did. I think it's the easiest way, and because not all of us have 3D printers, and you can find these support brackets for cheap on Amazon. Again, links below. Once the cables are done, it's time to install the 240mm NZXT Kraken all-in-one cooler. I replaced the stock fans with the Fantex T30 fans for better airflow and temperature. Keep in mind that the T30s are a bit thicker than the original fans, so the long original screws won't make it to the other end, and you'll have to use these types of screws to mount it. Now for this motherboard, you'll have to switch the mount to an AM5 liquid cooler, and make sure to read the instructions for that. Once done, I went ahead and installed the radiator at the lowest point possible so that I can give extra space for the top fans. When installing the AIO, make sure to properly position the hoses before pushing it in, and without inserting excessive force to avoid issues later on. Also, since the pump block and RAM are all low profile, I had no problem with the space, and I had a remaining 1 inch in between. And someone have asked how much space in between the CPU and the fans. I measured it, and it's about 14 centimeters. Hope that helps if you're thinking of using other liquid coolers. Now for the top fans, I went with the Arctic 120mm slim fans. which fits perfectly on top of the case for extra airflow. Now, another question for this is, if you purchase an additional radiator mount, will those slim fans fit? And the answer is yes for this configuration, because I have 1 inch space between the radiator and the mounting points. The second question is, can I put a 140mm slim fans in it? And the answer is no, because the RAM and power supply will get in the way. But right now, I've actually removed the top slim fans because I find that they are quite loud and the screws on top are really obvious, so I just had to remove them. So I would definitely recommend getting an extra radiator mount for this build for a cleaner look. Of course, I'll provide temperature with and without the slim fans. So for now, after locking all the remaining screws, the build is done, and here are some shots of the complete build.
Must be the drug. But now that I can focus, you're the one that I want. So forgive my emotions. Must be the drugs. That's why I lie.
So now, let me tell you about the sponsor of this video, Motion Array. Motion Array provides highly curated video assets with some AI tools for your next project. Supporting professional software such as Adobe Premiere Pro with library extension, After Effects, Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. They also just released their new layout for music and sound effects to make it easier and faster for you to find the perfect audio for your content. Now, one of my favorite is their LUTs, which are assets that can quickly color grade your footages and make them cinematic with just a click of a button. Now, if you're using DaVinci Resolve, here's a quick guide on how to install it. First, you go to motionarray.com and head to LUTs. Scroll around and check the LUTs you'd like to try. There's a wide variety of them. Click download, and once done, extract the zip file. Now open DaVinci Resolve and select any existing project or create a new one. Next, click the setting icon in the bottom right. Go to color management, and under lookup tables, click open LUT folder. And there you can move the LUT folder that you just downloaded, and once done, it should be visible within your color tab. Now let me show you some of my favorite ones. I found the Expedition LUT film by Playground Studio quite pleasing, and it contains 15 LUTs that are perfect for a wide variety of content. So if you like it, head to motionarray.com and you can sign up for free, and if you use my link below, you get $50 off annual plan. Thanks again, Motion Array, for sponsoring this video. Moving on with the benchmarks, I would like to show you the temperature first to see if this orientation is right for you. But keep in mind that this PC is sitting on the basement studio, so it's slightly cooler. Also, there's not much difference with the GPU thermals, but I'm quite impressed with the Asus Astral because with this orientation, there's barely enough space to have a good amount of air, but it still performs quite good. For the CPU thermals, it's slightly cooler with the top fans, but both are good actually if you don't mind a slight bump in thermals. Now let's go with the other benchmarks.
Ooh, that sugar sweet, you got what I need. Sipping on the potion, all that good emotion. Live it up, sweet emotion. Every time, every night, you and I on a roll. Switch it up where I'm going. Stay on the fly just in time, know the right way to go. I'm on the road, it's my time, taking control of my life. I want to run the red lights, I've got to run this show. You always take me so high, you always make the highlights. I love the way we vibe, you're like a centerfold. Ooh, that sugar sweet, you got what I need. Sipping on the potion, all that good.
So, let me know what you think, or if I forgot something. I'll try to answer it as much as I can in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel because I love making these types of videos. Hit like for the algorithm and follow me on my social medias. And as always, have a great day, stay faithful, and here are some of my videos if you want to check my channel. Peace out.